In this video, I'll be sharing with you a requested tutorial on how to cut this stylish neckline dress with collar. So to start, here is my pattern and I will start drafting from the back, right? So I've marked out my zipper allowance, which is about 1.5 to 2 inches. Now I marked the shoulder to bust, under bust, waistline, and then 7 inches to get your hip point. The next step is your knee line. From your waist, measure your knee line, but this is not my actual knee. I'm just using this mark to illustrate my knee point, right? And then I'll go ahead to mark my gown length. Marking that at the upper part, go ahead to mark your shoulder divided by 2 plus ½ inch because this dress has a sleeve. And after marking that, come down by 1 inch. Now the next step you're going to take is to go ahead to mark a neckline of 3.5 by 1 inch at the back and then go ahead to connect. Now if you're not okay with the 3.5 inches, please go ahead to use 4 inches, but it should not be too wide, if not it's going to gape. Now place my ruler and I'll connect from my shoulder to the neckline of my pattern. The next step is to go ahead to find your chest line, which is your bust circumference divided by 6 plus 1.5 inches. Mine gave me 7. I'll make a mark there and go ahead to place my ruler and draw out a straight line at that point. Now after marking this, the next step is to go ahead to mark your shoulder divided by 2 plus half again at the chest line of your pattern. After marking this, go ahead to extend it all the way up. Now the next step is to measure what you have here, divide it by 2, come in by ½ inch and go ahead to mark my bust circumference divided by 4. Now connect this all the way up and connect from the midpoint to your bust circumference divided by 4. Now after marking this, let's start by marking our dart. I'll mark my nipple to nipple divided by 2, and this measurement is starting after the waistline of my pattern. I'll mark it all the way to the hip. So I mistakenly marked on the knee point, but I will not be connecting. I'll just place my ruler and connect this all the way to the hip point of my pattern. After I'm done marking this, I'll go ahead to mark ½ inch on both sides, come down by 1 inch here from the bust, connect this all the way to the upper part, connect to the other side, and then I'll go ahead to extend this towards this side and also at the other side of the pattern. The next step is to mark my bust circumference divided by 4 and add my sewing allowance. Now for the back, you don't have an under bust, but I'm marking this because I'll use this pattern to draft for the front. So I'll mark the under bust circumference divided by 4, measure the dart intake and add any sewing allowance of your choice. At the waistline, mark your round waist measurement divided by 4. Pick the dart intake, measure it here, replace it and add your sewing allowance. Now at the hip, mark your round hip measurement divided by 4, then add your sewing allowance. Place your tape, measure your hip point. Now minus 2 inches and go ahead to mark it at the lower part. Or if you don't want it to be too fitted, you mark 1.5, minus 1.5 and mark from the hip. Now connect this all the way from the under bust going to the upper part of the bust down to the waistline of this pattern. So after connecting, I'll blend this out and connect it all the way to the hip. Now these 2 inches or 1.5 in minus, and mark that measurement also on your hip or place your ruler this way to connect. Now this is what I have on my pattern. I'll go ahead to use my marker to outline my pattern so that it will be more visible for you to see. I'll come in by ½ inch at this point, and after marking that, I'll go ahead to extend this all the way to the upper part and also extend this to the lower part towards the hip. Now I'll outline my darts. After doing that, I'll go ahead to cut out my pattern, and we'll also use this pattern to trace out that of the front pattern of this dress. And also cut out the zipper bulge area of your dress. Now For the upper part, I'm going to go ahead to measure the neckline of this dress. It is very important because we are going to be cutting out a collar for this pattern. Now, the total measurement we have, the neckline area is 6 inches, and remember what made it to get to that size is because we have a zipper allowance. Your collar stand will extend to the zipper part, but the collar will end where the neckline ends. That is, the collar stand will extend to the zipper, while the actual collar will only stop at where the zipper stopped on the dress. So after tracing out that zipper, I want to alter this pattern for the front. So I'll go ahead to extend the depth of the neckline to about 3 inches. Now, if you don't want to use 3 inches, you can extend the depth a little. So after this, from here, I'll mark 1.5 inches. Please, this is not a standard. Remember that if you're using 1.5 inches for your opening, if you open up the pattern, the space in between the neckline will be 3 inches. If you use 2 inches, if you open it up, you now have 4 inches while you open it up. Now I'll extend from there towards the side of the pattern. Now I'll measure how high I want the neckline here to be. I'm using 1.5. You can use 2 inches. Go ahead to take your measurement before marking. Now extend this all the way to the armhole this way. Now after I'm done marking this out, I'm going to go ahead to cut it out, right? But I'll outline to make my pattern very visible for you to see before going ahead to cut out. If you're not okay with this side, you can still go ahead to readjust. Now measure the remaining neckline of the dress, and what I have there is 4 inches. So I'll just go ahead and cut this out first. Then I'll cut out this part of my pattern, right? So this is what I have. Now you can just place and join, or if you notice, it's as if the upper part was placed on top of the bodies of the dress. So I'll just pin another pattern paper on it. Now after I'm done pinning, I'll just go ahead to place this at this point, and I'll trace out the side and the armhole. Now when I get to this point, I'll fold it and draw out. Now this part, you now cut it out. That is the excess you have. I'll just go ahead and I will cut this out at this point. So this is what I have. Now what you do is, after sewing this, you now place this on top stitch it and add the design. Now let's cut out the collar. The back neckline, I had 6.5. For the front, I have 4. So if I add 6.5 plus 4, it will give me 10.5 inches, and I will go ahead to mark. Now I'll be extending this line all the way up. So after that, I'll just fold my tape into 2, and I'll mark the midpoint. At the edge, I'll come up by ½ inch. Now I'll place my ruler. Connect from that point I went up by ½ inch to the midpoint. After marking this, I'll mark 1 inch for the collar stand height, right? So I'll just connect, and this is the part that will go towards the zipper of the dress. While the next one I will mark, which is the actual collar of the dress, will just stop before the zipper. So I'll go in by ½ inch here, and from that ½ inch I'll place and mark my collar height, right? So use any collar height of your choice. I'm using about 4.5 here. So from here I'll mark 2 inches, and I'll extend this, place my ruler, extend this to the point I have at the front here. Now after marking this, you want to give your collar that slight pointy edge. Come out by 1.5 or 1 inch. So anyone that is okay for you, depending on how pointy you want it to be. Then go ahead to connect your collar. So if you feel it's not pointy enough, please go ahead to extend. So after I'm done marking this, I'm just going to go ahead to cut this out. So if you have any question, please go ahead to ask. Now after cutting this out, I'll chop out the ½ inch underneath it. Now let's go ahead, move the part that will not be extending to the collar of this dress, right? So what I'll do is to go ahead to mark 1.5 inches, that is the zipper allowance from this side, and mark. Then I will connect it. So at the upper part, I'll just chop it up. So that side will go to the collar, then the actual collar will now rest at the back. So all you have to do is to bring your pattern and join your collar to the neckline of the dress, and this is what you'll be having.